Family, welcome to another episode of Financial Freedom. I am your host, and accompanying me on this journey, Derek Brown. Look, we started in the midst of a pandemic, March 2020, and since then we've gone from one show to over 35 shows, and we're all on the Hope TV. At the Hope TV, one word, all caps, that's the handle, at the Hope TV. You can find us on major platforms. Be sure to tune in to see other amazing content. We have a great show for you, and I have a co-host this time. I ain't gotta do it all by myself. I got a co-host. She is a phenomenal preacher. She's a preaching machine. And she's also the executive pastor of the House of Hope Atlanta. Her name is Jennifer Carner, Pastor Jennifer Carner. She's also an author of 31 Days of Winning, a women's devotional and prayer journal. And I've bought a couple of these, gave one away, and they're thoroughly enjoying it. She's going to be my co-host tonight as we talk to Paula Watts. Paula Watts is a businesswoman extraordinaire. She is the CEO of GPI, Government Procurement Innovators. She's trained over 350 individuals since opening her business in 2015. She's also a federal procurement strategist. She's also a certified contract strategist. She's won close to $15 million with the SBA 8A Business Development Program. She's a former business opportunity strategist. She's guided firms to getting multi-million dollar contracts. She's conducted over 800 seminars and counseled over 10,000 businesses through these workshops. Look, she has a book out too, but I'm going to let her talk about that in a second. Please welcome my co-host, Pastor Jennifer Carner, and our guest, Paula Watts, as we talk about Black women's success.
Good evening. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes, welcome, ladies. I'm so excited. Okay. So, Miss Watts, you got to tell us about this book. Go ahead and drop a little bit about this book because I'm nosy. I want to know.
Well, it's again, it's a book. The title of the book is called "That's Crazy," and recognize crazy and run. And I labeled that because I found myself through my journey of running into different situations that I probably should not have been in. And had I listened to the journey, listened to the voice and listened to God's voice, I may not have been in some of the situations I was in from the business, from my first business, and even with the marriage. So I want people to understand this life is a journey. You're gonna go through it as a roller coaster,
Yeah.
but God is able. You just have to believe. I think a lot of times people will state they have the faith, right? But the
Right.
faith is leaving your good government job with $14,000 on it because God said you got to leave this government job, even though I was trying to negotiate with him. It's like the government don't fire you, but he already had ordered my steps, but I didn't know at that time, and it was for this day. And thank you guys for always inviting me back. I appreciate you all doing what you do as well. It's all about us sharing the knowledge.
And I love that. I love that you're willing to share that with us because sometimes we need to know the crazy stuff just as much as we need to know the success stories. And sometimes it's the crazy stuff that actually sets us up for success in the long run. So thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing that. This is a shameless plug for this woman here. Pastor Carner, I need you to tell me about this book. What's going on with this journal?
So, co-host, you are preaching. I don't know, what you came to do tonight, but I heard a little preaching in your voice a minute ago. My book, very simply, is actually similar to Paula's story. It's a real life experience. I think that heartbreak and hard things happen to everybody, right? It happens to entrepreneurs, it happens to professionals, it happens to people who go to church. And so my book is really about bouncing back from hard things because I would say, as a culture and as a people, we are losing our resilience. It's becoming very difficult to bounce back from a lot of the cultural traumas that we've been experiencing. And so my book is really about getting back in the game. It's about finding your energy, finding your strength when hard things happen. So I hope it blesses you.
Definitely, definitely. I've looked through it. I know it's not necessarily. I'm not the target audience. However, I have looked through it and I have used some of it for devotional. I appreciate it. Where can we find your book, Pastor Carner?
Amazon.com. They are our fastest shipping agency, or rather company right now. So if you need the book, just go to Amazon.com, search for 31 Days of Winning, and they will get you your book.
I
Thank
love it,
you.
Miss Watts. When will your book be dropping, and where can we find your book at?
I will be doing the official book release in my hometown of Asheville, North Carolina on December 18th at the Grove Park Inn.
Come on now.
Um, and my goal is, again, to bring the community in. I'm, I'm opening it up to the community, bringing in the young men so that they can see success. I wanted
God,
to have it in one of the rich resorts that is in my hometown that many of the at-risk youth that live there don't even have an opportunity to ever visit. So my
wow.
goal is we got to come home, everybody. Mhm.
Got you.
But
I
we're
love
gonna
it.
have we're gonna have a
Look,
Simmons party too.
ain't nothing wrong with having a little fun now. Okay,
Yeah.
but let's start there because you're actually leading the way with exposing people to a story that they may not have been able to hear without you. Right, your book is bringing them on a journey, and through all your professionalism and all these things you've been through, you're able to guide and navigate from there. There are so many different challenges that women, people of color, but women specifically, may face. And how have you seen the element of exposure and having that the ability to see extended platforms influence people's journey?
What's been interesting since I left SBA in 2015, and created this program where I really do walk people through the process of understanding government contracts. And it's just not government contracts, it's changing people's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think of how America is set up, it's based on labor. We're all trained to be laborers, whether it's a degree, I don't care what it is, and no one is really training us on how to own a business. So
Right.
my goal is shifting our mindsets and understanding I don't have to know anything about that contract to win. My role is to be a project manager and find the people. And so what I found, as we've grown the program over the years, the dominant force is the women. I would say 85 to 90% of the participants in my program have been women. The men are now coming along, but
We a
it's
little
been,
slow sometimes, but we'll get it. We'll get it. Go ahead, but the women are dominant force. I'm with you. Go ahead.
yes, they are. They are. They make it happen. And what's been interesting, I have not been marketing this. This program has been strictly word of mouth. And
Wow.
I say word of mouth is word of God because
Right.
there's no way I could have done any of this on my own. Any.
Have you seen? Is there a specific when you come to provide this type of program? It sounds like you filled a void. It seems like you they saw another black woman up there and said, "Oh, I can do this too," and ran straight to it. Do you feel like you really stepped into a niche without even knowing it?
Well, mm, God has placed me in various positions through my career, from Asheville, North Carolina, the daughter of a police officer whose birthday is today. He's in heaven. Happy birthday, Daddy.
Happy birthday.
Um, to Washington, D.C. with the Sharks. I didn't know anything about city folks. And I got into this game of government contractors. And all I saw was black business owners up in the DC area winning millions and millions of dollars of contracts
Wow.
and watching and studying them. My challenge in the first business, I grew it so quickly. I went from the first year in business, $1 million contract. By the fifth year, I had almost $15 million in contracts, almost 40 employees. I had no clue about how to run a business. I couldn't read a profit and loss statement. I was just concerned about payroll.
Got
And
you.
then I had a bad business partner who felt like he could run his personal expenses through the business.
Mm.
And the last straw was a $3,000 custom made pinstripe suit with his initials going down the pinstripe. You have lost your mind.
Well, look, you might not be popular, but my favorite character is Celestial because
So one of the quotes that I wrote down in the book that kind of stood out to me was, "Love is the enemy of sound judgment."
She seemed like a very needy woman. And I can't even respect Andre because how do you prey on your friend's wife while he's incarcerated? Like, I just can't get with that. And maybe I got too invested in the book, That's the point.
Freedom. It's at the core of who we are. The freedom to live without fear, to jog where we please, to wear a hoodie. The freedom to breathe. Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
Is love transactional?
What is it? It's so good when you loving somebody and somebody loves you back. You want that and somebody loves you back part.
What is love?
I feel like we just opened up the miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Paula, you have been extremely successful in your business, and hearing your story is empowering. It's inspiring. What advice would you give some millennial powerhouses like the ones that you described in your program? What advice would you give those women who want to branch out, who want to start a business, but are just afraid to do it? What advice do you have for them?
Well, actually come through my program on one hand because being on the inside of SBA for 7 years, I realized that was the missing gap, and SBA is a powerful force for our community, but no one understands any of their programs. And it's siloed. So my program is creating a structure. And even if people own business for 10 or 12 years, everyone starts at the same place so that they can learn the same language. Because if you think of our ancestors, they knew if I could learn how to read or write, right? I could get in the game. And this is the same process. I'm teaching them how to read and write. And unless you've worked on the inside of SBA, no one understands them. I promise you.
Wow.
So that's really helpful, but I'm talking about the fear. Let's go a little bit deeper. What do you tell the young woman who says, it's just me? I am all I have. If I jump out there and I fail, I have nothing left.
And
How do you find the courage to do it? Yeah.
you have to fail. You have to take that. If you are a believer, and if God has put that in your head, that was the first step. And understanding and trusting God's words. And me in that first business, it was I was in it 9 years. And my goal was I was going to retire at 50. His goal was like, I'm getting ready to take you through some stuff so that you can use your experience to empower my children. And I learned that you have to fail in order to learn. I would not be here had I not had lost that first business, had $400,000 on my debt, had IRS on me for $250,000 in payroll. I had to learn, going through a divorce at the same time, starting over and trusting that God said, I'm ordering your step. You may not like it. It may not feel good, but everyone has to get out of their comfort zone to become comfortable.
So if I'm hearing you right, for you, from what you're saying to me, the price of success is failure. You have to
Absolutely.
fail sometimes. So would you agree that you learn more from failure than your success?
Absolutely. But at the time, I did not realize. I went through, and as part of the book, I went through depression. I thought I was a failure. I was shamed. In my community, when I realized I had to go bankrupt, um, I thought that was a black mark. Everybody's going to know I went bankrupt. But once I learned what bankruptcy was in America, guess what? I bankrupt that $400,000. I bankrupt my daddy's account. I bankrupt because that is what the vehicle is for us. But we not trained to understand the game.
Gotcha. And bankruptcy, so you're saying bankruptcy is just a tool of people who know how to use the game properly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gave me a fresh start.
Gotcha.
And here I am now. Mhm.
How would you, let me see. How would you discuss this idea? Because Pastor Carter brought up something really good. She talked about this idea of fear. What do you find is often the stumbling blocks that people put in their own way? We're talking about Black women this episode. As far as Black women, and then are there stumbling blocks that sometimes men cause Black women on their road to success, just in the career field?
I think we listen to the voices of others and not necessarily God's voice. Again, people looked at me at 55. You leaving your good government job? Yes, I am. Because God's voice was so strong that I had to leave because He'd already ordered where I would be. Um, Not dealing with the baggage. We as Black people, our culture, we are traumatized. We deal with post traumatic stress. And that was part of the book writing, the mental health awareness. Understand that depression is real. It could have taken me out. There was many days it's like, Lord, I just don't even want to be here. What can I do? And it wasn't that I wanted to die. It was that the pain wouldn't go away. And especially after my father passed, I'd gone through the divorce with the partner, divorce with the husband. Next year, my father died. My mother's health declined. I moved 10, 12 times. And it was like, I'm just tired.
Hey,
But I had a wisdom circle of sisters. That's how we come in. We come in and take over. We're not going. If you got to find some safe people because you can't tell everybody your business. But you
true.
need to have someone that's safe that can pray with you when you can't even pray for yourself.
So it sounds
Yeah,
like you created a sphere of support to
absolutely,
help you pass those hard times. And then
absolutely.
it sounds like also you began to prioritize things like these people are going to be who the people that I call when I'm struggling. Your faith obviously sounds like a huge part of your success. That is undeniable, hands down. What
Hmm.
other advice would you have for people who are getting in their own way? Because it sounds like life happened. One thing that's very
It,
clear in the story is that
mhm,
life happened and you were
mhm.
constantly having to shift around life.
Yes, yes. Understanding again. For me, I think when I had to close the business and had to realize that I could no longer afford the business, I had to create something positive. So I volunteered as a score counselor for 2 years. Once a
Okay.
week, I was religious in that office. They weren't paying me. It was another way to offset the negative. So me, it's always being able to find something that I can offset that's positive. I can't control this negative situation over here, but over here I can control it. Even when I decided to leave SBA, it wasn't that I just all of a sudden I'm going to go in tomorrow and I'm going to quit my job. I realized that wasn't where I was supposed to be. So I started my strategy and planning on my exit and then took that leap of faith. And you all understanding me, my background, I was raised in Catholicism and I ended up leaving that because, and not really understanding the Bible. That's why God placed these sisters in my circle that understood what the word really meant.
Hold
And
on. Before you stray too far away, because you just glazed over some stuff that I don't want to miss. So, Pastor Connor, I think you heard it like I heard it. Do you want this, or do you want me to? You go ahead. You go
Well,
ahead.
I'm still stuck at this circle. Like I've been waiting to jump in to talk about the circle. Because it sounds like you draw strength from the people you surround yourself with. And that's a very powerful tool because I think a lot of African American women, specifically, I can speak from a millennial perspective, we think that we're all alone, right? And that we have to make it happen on our own. And so I think there's something very strong in what you shared that we need support, right? So I want to kind of dig right there. Can I dig right there, Derek? Can I talk a little bit? Like, I want to find out from you when we run up against or when we face gender bias in the workplace, because we know it's real, right? How would you advise women to advocate for themselves, right? They've got that support system when they come home, but when they're on the job, when they're in that boardroom, it's just them. So how do we advocate for ourselves in those spaces?
it's understanding the game. Meaning, for me, I grew up in that environment. I went to in Asheville, North Carolina. The percentage of whites are low. I mean, high. I went to a predominantly white school. So I was trained on how to deal with the other side. And for me, we as a race, we show our face. Our emotions are on our face. If you made us mad, especially women, it's all on our face. So my first couple of jobs dealing with the other side, I understood I could not let them see my emotions. I would have this smile on my face, regardless what they said to me. I would go outside and cry, but they would never see me broken. No. Mm-mm.
Every discipline starts with creating a habit. Find a plan that works for you. I know you can put a reminder in your phone, call so and so in 30 days. You can't use the excuse that, oh, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert. You know, stuff people like to say. Nah, if you're not outgoing, right, you better get going, because that's the only way networking works.
Meet the Scan, a simple procedure whose mission is to detect lung cancer early.
I'm here to save you!
But I feel fine.
That's great, but you may still be at high risk for lung cancer.
Oh man, that's a new fence.
If you smoke, early detection could save your life. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
We are still talking all about the season of fall.
So when you talk about being able to play the game, right? Being able to be in the space, be present in the space, but understand that there are certain conversations and certain emotions that are for when you leave, right? What would you say to a young woman who is crumbling under that pressure, right? We live under the double consciousness of being both African American and female. So, what would you say to that woman who is like, I'm tired of this? What would you say to her?
Well, I think I would probably tell her to create her own destiny. As long as you're in and someone is paying you, they own you. And for me, I've always created my own destiny. At 25, I knew I was going to own my own business. I didn't know how I was going to get there. By 35, I started that business. By 40, I was a multimillionaire. I used each job that I went through, because I went through 6 companies. I knew I could never just stay one place 30 years. I used those jobs as teaching tools. I got something from each one of them that I knew I would use in my own business.
That's phenomenal. Derek, you want to jump in? I can keep going because Paula just has so much wisdom to share with us.
I'm taking mental notes because she has the circle. She learned the game. She worked to learn. She didn't work to earn.
Yes.
She so I'm taking mental notes in my head. So when you went through these places, did you find any allies among men that were able to help you in those spaces, or what did you constantly have to find that you had to come in and carve your niche?
Well, in my space, it was dominated by women. I was an event planner.
Gotcha.
And my challenge coming from the South and going up to the North was Caucasian women. I had to learn from them, and I needed them. Meaning, one of the jobs that I was with, I learned the game early. Meaning, I understood who was paying my salary, so my allegiance became with the government. So every time that contract ended, I went to a new company. So I walked in the door with power because I had a $3 million contract. They knew if they messed with me, that contract would go away. So I always created my jobs. I've never looked for a job. Every job I've had, I've created it.
So let me ask this: because you created your jobs and you walked in with contracts, even though you are dealing with women, you're also dealing with white women. Did you feel like there was ever a glass ceiling above you, or was that never the case because you made your own job?
No, because the women that were above me were vice presidents. I was a project manager. And so and that was probably the biggest mistake I had in that first business. I went from a project manager to running a multi-million dollar company and didn't have a clue about operations. I didn't understand the infrastructure that would be required to support these contracts. So the business just took off. And I'm trying to understand 941s, payroll taxes, what I need to file, what personnel manuals I need, how do I hire? So all of that was at the same time.
So you were literally learning as you go. Oh my goodness. That is one heck of a learning curve.
That's God.
So how did you keep yourself together? I know your faith is a big deal, and I know that kept you. Was there a specific strategy you had in place to keep yourself together in that kind of stress? Because it sounds like stress. Maybe it wasn't, and you just had it all together. I would have been stressed out. I'd have been calling Pastor Carter like, I need office hours.
And I would have been calling you back. Saying I'm stressed.
So what was the question again?
I'm sorry. Strategy. Was there a strategy you used to keep yourself together while you were both in this position and having to learn the fundamentals at the same time?
Well, making sure that my clients was service because I knew the government was paying my salary. Meaning on one of those jobs, I was fired and hired at the same time on the same day. Meaning this Caucasian woman came in that they just hired, and she said she wanted my office. But I had hired all these teenagers to help me support. I had 6, 7 meetings going on. And I told her that wasn't going to occur. And she told me I was being insubordinate. And I said, okay. And that I was fired. But my client had already told me where the contract was going. And I had set up an interview with the new company at 1:30. So I was fired at 11:30.
You wasn't playing at all. She's like, I'm fired. I'm gonna follow the money. I'm gonna follow the money. Right.
But then that's what really created the company, because when I went over there, again, the same Caucasian women, I had to tell them I was fired, and they was like, oh, okay. We're gonna cut your salary $13,000. You're going to cut my salary $13,000, although the government have been paying me this salary through all these companies these years. They caught me in a vulnerable part. So I said, okay, no problem. I need a job. So I studied operations. I studied their weakness. Their weakness in that company was they depended on temporary staff. Understanding that, I created my first business under that umbrella. And then I went back to them, and I found a company that did Xerox copying, because in conference planning, you need a lot of copying. But he had temporary staff on his brochure. So I cut a deal with him. I said, the company I'm working for, outside of my contract, if I can bring you copying contracts and you hire temporary staff, will that work for you? He agreed. So I went back to the company, the same women that cut my salary. I found a great company. He does copying and temporary staff, and they did it. So they would call him. He would call me. I would call my friends and family. I told them, I need you to take 2 days off to stuff these meeting packets. I'll pay you $12 an hour. I invoiced him $28 an hour. I made $60,000 back in that first six months, because now I'm forming all my services out to all my other companies that I used to work for.
So I'm going to jump in right there, because really, Paula, what you're sharing is rich, right? You took a terrible situation and turned it around in the same day. That's dynamic. And I think that's the beauty of being a survivor and being a Black woman who is flourishing, a Black woman who is flourishing and just thriving. So we have like 5 more minutes. So Derek, I don't know how you want to close us out, but I think we need a number 2. I think we need a part 2. What you think, co-host?
If you want to do a part 2 and Miss Watts is up to it, we will do a part 2 and we will talk some more.
I am up to it. Again, I'm here to serve. That's my role.
Okay. I'm all for it. All right. So before we go, one more time, I'm going to give both of y'all a shameless plug, and then we're going to come back next episode and talk some more. All right. Miss Watts, where can we find you, your business, your book? You go first.
You can find my business at www.GPIWIN. God's Plan I Win. GPIWIN.com. And
Gotcha.
Facebook. I see you have my Facebook, but everything's on my website. And you can hear the testimonies. Again, it's not been about me. You got people that are winning contracts, which means we're changing generations. That's the whole key here. We've got to prepare better for the future, for your grandchildren, Mr. Brown, for your grandchildren, Miss Carter. That's my role. We've got to change the game.
I'm with it. Pastor Carter?
Yes.
Where can we find you and your book?
I'm on Instagram at @TheKarnaJLC. And again, my book is available on Amazon. It's also available on Barnes & Noble, but I do know that Amazon has the quickest or the fastest shipping time. So I'd love to connect with you, and we can talk about winning together, because that's what I'm all about. How we as women and also just people of color, how we can win together. Thank you.
Yeah. We're gonna be talking about some more next episode. We can get to all these questions that we got written down. So, with that being said, ladies, thank you so much for being with me tonight. Thank you so much. I know time is valuable, so the fact that you chose to spend your time with me tonight, and for our Financial Freedom viewers, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, good viewers of Financial Freedom, we will be back on a part 2 talking about Black women's success. My co-host will be back. Paula Watts will be back. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And like I always say, be safe out there. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Today, we're going to be making some southern fried okra. I know you guys probably saying, ooh, I don't like okra, it's too slimy or whatever. But I'm going to tell you, the way we're going to deep fry this thing, you're not going to taste any slime. Let's go.